Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielson and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
All right, it's 11:04 on a Friday, and I'm actually here. This is crazy. Good to see you guys. It is weird to be here on a Friday, but I'm looking forward to settling in. It is the Lock Shop presented to you by Coolbet. If you've not yet checked it out, coolbet.com. Use the code LOCKSHOP when you sign up, and you'll get a 100% deposit bonus on your initial deposit up to $200. I love Mark already in the chat over there. It says, thank you, Daniel Jones, for that last-second interception. And it's funny how it's tough to get the best of both worlds, because I had Dallas on a bet builder last night where they just had to score more than 20.5 points. And I'd already hit the other 5 things. I was just like, oh, they're bringing out Aubrey. This is great. And then he blows it, and I was losing it. And then one of you, P. Greggy, you were like, let's see a Daniel Jones interception. And then sure enough, right at the end of the game, Hail Mary shot picked off. I was like, man, betting taketh and betteth, giveth, and whatever it is, whatever the saying is. It's funny how the last 60 seconds of that football game worked out for us.
Yeah, it was a nightmare for your bet builder, but a lock shop miracle for mine, for the Patty's primetime parlay. And I was talking to Jake, man. The Patty's Pirates were getting a little antsy. They're getting ready to throw me off the plank because it's a couple weeks now since one of those have cashed. So it finally cashed on a miracle. Now we get hot. Now we get back on a roll and start catching those parlays. But overall, it wasn't just me, fellas. I mean, it was a solid day for the Lock Shop.
It was.
Probably one of the tidiest, sweat-free bets we've ever had before. That was easy as pie.
That Lock Shop partner parlay was just, it was never in doubt. I mean, I should have just left the Ferguson number where it was. We moved it down. I mean, he crushed it. Neighbors is a freak. And Wan'Dale Robinson, I said this morning, I mean, if you don't have this guy in fantasy, if this guy's still on your waiver wire, and I know he's on a lot of waiver wires, but remember yesterday, Pat, we went over like who Daniel Jones throws the ball to? The targets in last night's game were even more ridiculous than the first part of the season. Like last night, between Neighbors, who ended up with 17 fantasy points even without a touchdown, but last night, the targets for these two receivers, if you're looking at betting overs on targets moving forward, their tight end, their backup tight end, Johnson there, he had 1 target. Singletary had a target. Tracy had a target. Slayton had 5. Robinson had 14, and Neighbors had 15. Like, Jake, all Daniel Jones does is throw the ball to those 2 guys. That's it. I mean, I'm going to be on those 2 props every single week moving forward.
I mean, isn't that the way it should be, though? You feed your best players and you let them go do the work, right? So, I mean, he's feeding the right guys at least. You know, we're not getting targets to, like, you know, the backup tight end. Like, he's feeding the guys that should be getting the ball and should be, you know, moving this team downfield. Obviously, they lose by 5, but they were in the game the whole time. It was a little frustrating to watch. I mean, Dallas, I texted my buddies, felt like they were playing with their food. Like, it felt like whenever they needed a stop, they were able to get it. But sometimes they just feel like they didn't want to get a stop. Like, it was what an awful game. I know we haven't even got into it just yet, but I'm like so boring, and the penalty flags, and I'm just like, this is driving me insane. And then Aubrey's strutting out, and I'm like, okay. Like, I stood up in my living room. It's like, I'm ready for bed at this point. I stood up, and I'm like, let's just put this one through the uprights, 51 yards. He's never missed a 50-plus yarder in his career. And sure enough, he missed. And right off the foot, it was missing. It wasn't even like it started to leak back, but it wasn't close. And it was frustrating because all those trends I laid out. And, of course, the classic thing online was, now favorites or underdogs of 5.5 points move up to 15-2 against the spread. Giants had no business covering that spread last night. They didn't score a touchdown. Yeah, they kicked 5 field goals. Like, in no world do they deserve to cover that spread. Sure enough, they do, and I'm sure the books were happy. But you know what? I still feel I was on the right side. as all three of us, I feel we're all feeling the similar way about the Cowboys. So hoping it translates to this weekend and things start to move our way.
Well, I said it. You laid it out perfectly. You couldn't have convinced me more. But I told Dusty this the day before, that when it comes to the Cowboys, for me personally, when I bet on them, if I bet on them to cover, they end up not covering by a couple of points. And if I bet against them, they end up blowing the team out of the water by 30. So it was a stay away spot, but you're 100% right. That was the right side. That was it. That was the play. If I'm a Cowboys fan, I'm certainly happy that they won that game. It was a must win, but
there's a but here, right? There's a but here.
There's a huge but here. You said it, Dusty. They have to win convincingly, and they did not convince me anything that this Cowboys team has any business on making a deep run this year. I'm sorry. I have no confidence in. That was an ugly, gross, disgusting game. I get it. It's a Thursday nighter. It's in division. We kind of see those games grinded out. But man, oh man, that Cowboys team has some issues.
Yeah, I am no more confident in the Dallas Cowboys now than I was. In fact, I might even be a little bit less confident in the Dallas Cowboys now than they even held single. They've been getting run all over so far this season. That didn't happen last night, and they still couldn't win comfortably against the Giants. So I don't know what Dallas is moving forward. The game itself was a dud. I mean, it was a stinker. That drive in the second quarter where the Giants dinked and dunked their way down the field. It was like 8 minutes, and then they settled for 3. I mean, if I was on the full blown over in that game, I would have been absolutely furious at that point. And where do you guys come out on Michaels just calling it as it is? Like straight up, just this is awful. There's been 147 flags. Pat, you have a great relationship with the NLL. You're a national NLL broadcaster. I'm a national CFL broadcaster. I don't think I could get away with throwing the league under the bus as much as he does.
No, absolutely not. But I mean, he's Al Michaels. He's been doing this for 100 years. He has the capability.
He almost seems like he doesn't enjoy calling the games anymore, though. It's just like, I get it. It was a dud, but still.
It was a dud, but with him being on assignment on the Thursday nighter now, like a lot of the times we see, because it's not like a Monday or a Sunday where they kind of try to load up the schedule. Like this is like kind of the opportunity for the crappy teams fan base to be like, look, you're getting a primetime game. It's a Thursday and it's 2 terrible teams off short rest. What do you think the product's going to be? But yeah, Al Michaels, his give a crap meter is at an all-time low right now. I do love though how he's, again, I know betting obviously a lot more ingrained in the broadcast, but him at the end, when the field goal unit came out, when Aubrey came out, he goes, this is either going to make a lot of people happy or a lot of people mad that they're going for a field goal at this point in the game. And sure enough, I know there was quite a few people that were upset that Aubrey missed the field goal. For me, as soon as it was missed, I was like, okay, maybe the parlay's alive. Maybe Danny Dimes throws a dumb interception here.
And he does.
Well, and he does. And he does.
Always trust on Danny Dimes to do something disappointing in a football game to help you win a bet. I mean, it's just, we said yesterday, was it minus 118 to just be on the interception itself too, which is a pretty good number, I think, in that situation. All right. So Jake, anything else on the Thursday nighter before we look ahead to the rest of the week?
No, I thought you guys covered it really well. Fergie was one of the big ones I had circled in terms of receptions.
Yeah.
He took care of business. They really fed him. Kind of that last drive of the first half and then early in the second half, that was a pretty easy cash. So, yeah, good to see you guys cash a couple parlays, and hopefully we can roll that into a couple weekend parlays here.
Matt of the Garrison says, guys, giving up 280-plus passing yards in the air from Daniel Jones is a little bit scary for the Cowboys. Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. Daniel Jones threw for almost 300 yards on you. So we'll see. I'm not sure. At this point, I'm not sure Dallas is a playoff team, but we'll see where it goes. We'll see where it goes from here. I do have an Elks player prop parlay I'll throw out right at the end here. We can get that up for the game tonight. If you're going to be watching that game tonight, we will be at Century Casino for the pre- and post-game show. Reed and Jay will be out there from 3 to 5 today as well, and we can settle in for a little watch party there. As you guys looked at the board this week, and Huss has sent us his picks. We'll get into his picks. We got his touchdown house caller as well. We'll get into all of that. But as you guys looked at the board this week, and I don't know, I must have sat out there and stared at my computer for hour and 15 minutes between shows today because I'm like, okay, I don't mind this game. And I was like, no, I don't know about that game. What about this game? I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if I'm overthinking the board this week or what. But Jake, what do you think of what we're seeing there right now?
It's a tough board. Patty already messaged me and said, I hate the board once again this week. It's one of those spots where, we've seen so many favorites cover, especially big favorites, and win outright, where you almost feel like, eventually it's bound to flip. Like Patty already mentioned this. I've mentioned this. Like, there's going to be some regression to the mean. They're not going to cover at a 15-2 rate all season long of big favorites. But at the same time, it's like, there are some favorites on the board that I do like, but I can't take, the underdogs that I do like, but I can't take underdogs in the entire week. So I'm trying to pick some favorites. And I don't know, I feel like I'm in one of those situations where I'm like, am I just taking a favorite because I feel I like too many underdogs, or do I actually like this team to cover? I don't know.
This is exactly, and Pat, I'll throw it to you in a sec. But as I was putting together my list, I'm going down it, and I've got 3 favorites, and I was just like, what am I doing? So then I'm searching the board for a dog, and I found one that you guys are not going to believe in a million years. But Pat, how about you? Your thoughts on how this thing looks this week?
I just feel like we're all galaxy braining ourselves with all this. It's just this recent trend of the big dogs covering and some of them winning outright. So I kind of stayed away from some of those bigger numbers and allow water to find its level. Like, I saw that the Texans, their cover rate after, losing the week prior is something unbelievable. But then like Stroud as a favorite is actually not too favorable. I think that tweet just went out.
As just tweeted out by Coolbet. I saw that. Yeah.
So that one, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to stay away. I'm going to just kind of lean on the games that I do truly have a gut feeling and kind of block out all the noise. So the games that are tighter, that are closer within the, anywhere, less or about a field goal is where I went. And also last week, because I hate the board so much, I really dug in on some totals, and it actually was quite successful for me. Went 2-0 on unders. I think I went 1-1 on overs. So I think I'm going to lean into the totals here as usual, hit some player props, and then instead of spraying the board with sides just because, I think I'm going to pick 2 or 3 that I really like and kind of go with the gut instead of diving into, what do we go with the trend and ride it? Or do we say the trend's going to get bucked and let's hammer all the favorites here? I'm going to block out the noise and just go with what my gut likes on a few of the shorter spreads.
A few notes on this. I have felt a lot better about totals than the sides so far. I think through the first 3 weeks, like I look at the board, I see a lot of totals that I like, a lot of unders probably that I like. And then the second note there is you were talking about staying within like 3 points. I don't have a single game on the board this week that's within 3 points. I am on some bigger favorites. I'm on one bigger dog. So let's get into it. We'll each do one best bet at a time. And then after we get through one of our best bets, I'll throw in one of Huss's best bets, and then we can kind of continue to work our way across the board here. We'll get to our house callers TD, which did hit last week. What was that, 1150 or something like that when we hit that one last week? I will power rank. I will power rank our touchdown scores as well. So, all right, Jake, give us one of your top 4 best bets of the week.
Well, Dusty, this got to be the last time I do this, but I cannot quit your boy the investment, and I'm taking the Jags. I'm hopping in. I'm with you. I'm on the Jags too. They're my one dog this week. I'm going with you. I'm in. I'm back in. Couldn't have played a worse game against the Bills on Monday night. Like, just awful football. Trevor Lawrence looks like he's never played football before, and this has been the big story of the week, right? We've talked about this. This guy's been an ultimate prospect since he was in sophomore year of high school. Like, this guy has been the guy for a long, long time. They've lost 8 in a row. Like, you can't continue to lose. 6 points is a lot of points. It's a divisional dog. Like, it's just one of those things where, I don't know. I know Houston's coming off a pretty embarrassing loss to the Vikings, but the Vikings, by all accounts, are a pretty solid football team. I think we can all agree on that.
Wagon.
I don't know. It's just one of those things. Divisional dog, 6+ points. We know how good the dogs of big numbers have been doing this year. I know I just went against that on my earlier point, but I can't quit it, Dusty. 0-3, like, even if they don't win this football game, like, just to keep everyone's job, whether that's Trevor Lawrence or Doug Peterson, you got to find a way to keep this close. And I think this is the time. Jackson.
I love you, Jake. The moment because that was the one I was like, you guys are never going to believe who I'm on again. Yeah. And I'll go back to Jackson. Pat looks disgusted in us right now. But I saw this trend right here. Teams that lose by 30 points or more and then are now dogs of 4 points or more are 64% against the spread. Teams that lose by 35 or more, 72% against the spread. This was a line a line like before the last game. I think it was at 4.5, and it's moved up to 6 now. So I going back to the investment as well, man. I just like how much it goes one of two ways. They either win, which would be a cover, or they lose and somebody gets fired. It's that simple. That's how I think this week has to play out.
It's
Pat,
the old.
We're nuts. Are we nuts, Pat?
No, it's the old dead cat bounce. Like, you got to show a pulse at some point here. You get absolutely mollywopped and you have to show something here. Like this is a Trevor Lawrence hair game. I'm dead serious. Lose this game this week, he better be coming out with a tight fade or a faux hawk or something.
Cornrows.
Doug Peterson. Cornrows. Let's go with cornrows. Doug Peterson. He's got to be packing his shit if he is not going to win this game or at least cover this game against the Texans. I hate it. I will not. I will give you guys my emotional support. I will give you guys my seal of approval that you guys can do this. But me personally, with my hard-earned money, I will not be putting money on the Jags, but I will be here to pat you on the back when they do cover, and I will say that was a great bet, guys. Okay,
well, look, Pat, I gotta say, two of us are on it. We're throwing it into the parlay. Simple as that.
That's fine. That's fine. That's how it works.
We're not doing that. We can't do that. But all right. So there's one of our best bets. Give us one. Give us one, Pat. What do you got?
I'll give it one of my best bets that I know that Huss is on as well. Actually, Huss and I are pretty aligned this week, so I think it won't be too hard to figure out what our best bet will be. But I think it's the Vikings here, plus 2.5. I also like the Vikings just to outright win this game. I know a lot of talks. Is it Malik Willis? Is it Jordan Love? Me personally, I don't really care who it is. I think this is more of a bet on the Vikings. Minnesota has been one of the best stories of the year so far. Starting the season out 3-0, Sammy Darts has been electric. That offense has been unbelievable, averaging 28.3 points per game. That's the third best in the NFL this season, but not enough people are talking about what Brian Flores and this defense is doing. They are just averaging 10 points against per game, and only Pittsburgh has given up more. They are disguising their coverage really well, confusing quarterbacks. And if it's Malik Willis, good luck trying to read that defense. Even if it's Jordan Love, sure, maybe you have a little more of an argument, but Jordan Love's not going to be 100%. There is no way he is going to be mobile enough that we normally see. I know he's not a rushing quarterback, but he has the capabilities to evade tackles, to get out of the pocket and make great throws. He's not going to be able to do that. A lot of those great throws, it's off the back foot. It's not him planting his feet. So I don't think he's going to be as effective as we have seen him previously. But again, this is not a bet fading the Packers or deciding who's playing quarterback. This is me believing that the Vikings are the real deal. So give me the Vikings plus 2.5. Me personally, I'll probably sprinkle the money line on them as well.
Yeah, Huss had his picks in here. He had Minnesota plus 3 at minus 119 as one of his best bets. I will say this. I did consider the Vikings. I do like the Vikings side more than the Packers side in this one. Jake, did you consider this game at all?
No, I kind of stay away. I do love a good divisional dog, though. I mean, we've already talked about it once now with the Jags. So, I think if I had to lean aside, it's probably the Vikings, especially with the uncertainty at quarterback there for the Pack. But it was a stay away for me. I just didn't get a good feel on it.
I'll say this too: if Huss is going to buy the half point for my best bet, I'll put it there too. We'll figure out what we want to do.
Move it to 3 because minus 1, as long as we're usually within minus 120, right? We can kind of move things around. So it's minus 119 at plus 3.
Yeah, because I will be in no shape or form come Monday if they lose by field goal and I didn't buy that half point. And Huss is like, well, I did.
All right, so that's what we got. We got Huss and Patty on the Vikings plus 3, myself and Jake on Jacksonville plus 6. All right, Jake, give us pick number 2, buddy.
Well, listen, this is a spot where if this team doesn't find a way to win this football game, the season's over.
Oh, God.
Joey Burr on the road in Carolina.
I'm doing it. I'm on it.
Me and Dusty. Man.
You and me again.
You got to remember, Dusty, we made fun of Dusty last week, and it wasn't fair to him because he wasn't even on the show. We picked on him. We're like, gross number, Denver, gross. They won outright. Like, listen, I'm happy to be on the same side as Dusty. Like, if he likes the gross numbers, so do I. I'm taking the Bengals. I know it's an Andy Dalton. Like, people say it's a revenge thing. I don't think it really is. I don't know if Andy Dalton looks at the Bengals as, he got screwed over by them. Like, it was time to kind of all parties to move on in that sense. I'm taking Joe Burrow. I think the offense actually looked pretty solid against Washington.
It did.
The defense has to step up. There's nothing else to be said about this Bengals team besides the fact that they just need a timely stop, especially late in that game. I think Washington had 10 guys in the field. Daniels gets it off. He's getting pressured, and he makes a perfect throw down the sideline to Terry McLaurin to seal the deal. Like, pretty incredible stuff from Daniels last week. I think they're going to have a little bit more understanding of what Andy Dalton's going to bring to the table. I think last week was more of a bit of a shock. If the Bengals don't get this one, then I don't know what to tell you. It's something's going to happen.
Their season's over. Their
season the season 0-4.
If they start the season 0-4, they start the season 0-4 with losses to the Patriots, Commanders, and Panthers. Are you kidding me? Like, their season's over at that point.
And I think they get the Ravens next week.
They get the Ravens.
So, you know what I mean? Like,
then they get the Giants. But, I mean, they'll be 0-5 heading into the Giants game at that point. Like, It's just.
It has to. The biggest must. I actually have it labeled here as the biggest must win of the season. It's week 4. How can you even say that? But it's the biggest must win of the season.
Up until this point, that's the biggest must win of the season. Agreed.
No doubt. Jake, I know you're a part of my take guy. They talked about it, and I know it's a bit outlandish, but there is a world where the Bengals could actually win out the rest of the year and still not make the playoffs. Like, that's because of the head-to-heads and all that, how that could work. So they absolutely have to win this game. And yes, I kind of chuckled at you guys when you said you guys were going to ride the Bengals. Me personally, it's like, God, like, how can you ride with this team? On the flip side, though, A, there isn't a hungrier team in the league. B, they're going up against the freaking Panthers. Exactly. It's not like it's world beaters here. And it's 4.5 points. Would I be shocked if they won by a touchdown? Absolutely not. This number, realistically, if you're looking at the teams on paper, should be more than a touchdown. Yeah. You know what? Screw it. I'm with you guys. Give me the Bengals minus 4.5.
100%.
That sounds like that's going on the parlay.
Like, before this past week, I think, like, in the early look ahead, the Bengals were a 7-point favorite. Now we're getting them at 4.5. Come on, like, nothing against Andy Dalton and what he was able to accomplish, but the Bengals have to be better than the Raiders. I'm sorry, even on the defensive side of the ball. I know, and you guys, I mean, Jake nailed it. Their defense has to get off the field. It's as simple as that. Yeah. Their offense has actually looked pretty good the last 2 weeks, and I would expect their offense looks good against Carolina. So, man, I love this. Another riding together again, Jake. Cincinnati Bengals minus 4.5. They have to have it, or their season's just screwed. Yeah. Done. Like,
yeah. I'm with you guys. I'm riding it. Put it on my card as well.
All right, and then who did? Let me see. Who did Huss have? All right, so Huss is going. We'll go Tampa. He's on Tampa. That was his second pick. Plus 1.5. Do any of you guys have that Tampa game on your card?
Yeah, I had it as well.
You guys both have it.
Yeah.
Okay, well then let's just dive into that game right now.
Yeah, I like it at plus 1.5. I like it even better on the money line. I know it's not as good as a number, but when it comes to a parlay, I think that's a little more enticing. And we always come on this program, especially at the start of the year, don't overreact in the NFL. Don't overreact from what we saw. It can be a week-to-week league. I think the book is completely overreacting here. The Eagles are coming off a very emotional, grinded-out victory where Saquon Barkley basically put that team on their back. I talked about it yesterday. If two Saints players don't run into each other and Goddard runs a miracle touchdown in, they probably lost that game. They found a way to win it, and yes, I get it. The old adage goes, good teams find a way to win. I don't think that was the case here. On the flip side, the Bucs, yes, that was a terrible, terrible loss. But I think this is a bounce back spot for them. Personally, I think the Bucs are perennially slept on. I have them to win their division at the start of the year. I'm a believer in Baker Mayfield, and I just really do not believe that the Eagles are an elite football team. Their defense stinks. Jalen Hurts has a turnover problem, and they're missing so many key players, especially offensively. A.J. Brown's still not going to play. Like, this team is so unbelievably banged up, and I don't think we're getting the real. I think the Buccaneers should be favored in this game. I think the wrong team's favored, and that's why I got the Bucs here.
Quick note from Rod Z: the Bucs have won 5 of their last 6 against the Eagles. Jake, your thoughts on Tampa here?
Yeah, I think Patty laid it out really well. I don't have to go into too much more detail, but like you said, Lane Johnson, questionable. Devonta Smith, questionable. A.J. Brown, I think he's not going to play. So, I mean, we're in a scenario where, like, you're down 3 of your best players if you're the Philadelphia Eagles. I thought they grinded out. I was actually on the Eagles side last week, and I thought they grinded out that win. But I don't think, like Pat said, I don't think they deserve to win necessarily against the Saints. Now they got to go to Tampa, take on the Bucs, who the Bucs, are coming off one of the lowest of lows, losing that game to Denver and really not being competitive at all. I think they'll have a good game plan set up in this one, and I think this is a great spot, like Patty said. I don't think it's just a +1.5 play. I'm probably playing this money line.
All right, so all 3 of you.
Quick question.
Yeah.
This just came into my head. Is there a possibility this game gets moved, by the way, like with Hurricane
because
Helen
of the
coming?
hurricane? Yeah, no, I saw you brought that up today, I think. I don't know. I haven't checked in on the status of it, but one of the previews I was reading today was like, keep tabs on this because, I mean, if it doesn't get moved, weather is certainly going to be a factor in it. And that obviously can change a lot when it comes to the bets that you're going to make. So that's something we could look at.
And again, like, if, hopefully, fingers crossed, prayers, that everyone is safe down there. If they do move the game, like, obviously the Buccaneers are going to be playing a little more motivated as well, like just with what's going on with their community. So we've seen in the past with hurricanes and different tragedies and stuff like that. It's crazy to say it on a betting program, but like that stuff is also real too. Sometimes there's things bigger than sports, and sometimes guys play with a little chip on their shoulder when they're battling out there for their community.
All right, let's get to Rod Z says no. The hurricane went by. It's in Atlanta as we speak. So look at Rod. He's got trends, and he's on the weather. And he's on the weather.
Like
this guy
should be long gone by then.
Should be okay. All right. Okay, so that's good to know.
So it might be fine.
Okay, so I think we've got 3 picks from each of you guys so far. Huss, let's get to his third pick because it's also my third pick. He's on the Jets -7.5. I'm going to get on the Jets -7.5 in a classic Nathaniel Hackett revenge game. And I know the Broncos helped me last week, got me a dub as a dog, but I'm going back to Aaron Rodgers and the Jets this week against Denver. And this wouldn't be a spot play, but it could be a spot play for me. Like, regardless of the spot, I still like the Jets here. But the Broncos are playing their second straight road game after a double-digit win against a playoff team from last season. They're going to be a little bit comfortable there. The Jets playing at home for the second straight week off extended rest following the Thursday night blowout win over New England. So on top of all of it, and a rookie quarterback against the Jets defense, I think this is a pretty comfortable, at least a 10-point win for the Jets at home in this spot. So I'm going to take the Jets -7.5. Huss is also on the Jets -7.5. So those are our third best bets of the week. Any thoughts on this game before we get to our fourth best bets of the week? Either you guys consider this game?
Jake, you.
Yeah, I considered it. I knew Huss already had it on his card, so I was trying to look around the board for something different. I think that's the side that I would be on, though. Like I said, not all these big underdogs are going to continue to cover at the rate they're covering at. So as long as we're picking the right ones, I think we're going to be fine going forward. And I mean, if we're talking about big dogs this week, I definitely wouldn't put my money on Denver. So yeah, I'm with you guys there on the Jets.
Yeah, it was a consideration.
It's a big number, but
it is a big number.
Yeah.
So like I said, I tried to stay away from those big numbers because the trends are just putting my mind in a pretzel.
All right, let's get into our fourth best bets of the week. Jake, who do you like? Who are you rounding out this card with?
I don't know. I'm starting to get a little scared because the numbers moved a half point since I looked at it. But I know. I'm going to give the Saints a chance here. I wasn't on them last week, so it wasn't one of those things where I was upset after their performance and I had to put them on the shit list. Like, I think it's one of those spots where they probably deserved to win against the Eagles last week. They weren't able to get it done. Now they got a divisional game. Yes, they got to go to Atlanta. Actually, look, Kirk Cousins doesn't have a great against the spread record indoors. I don't know what that's all about. But yeah, just another one of those divisional dogs that I have circled where, I think the Saints are a solid football team. I think that defense tends to be flying around. Like another great game last week. Obviously, weren't able to get the job done. I think the offense got to pick it up a bit more after last week. But I think the Falcons have played a couple good games here, right? Like they beat the Eagles in prime time, and then they keep it close against the Chiefs in prime time. Probably should have won. There was a defensive pass interference that wasn't called on the Chiefs that I think we can all agree was pretty blatant.
Yeah, I don't know how that's not a flag. Like I just don't get that.
Crazy. I
just think they're getting a lot of respect right now. And all the power to them. Kirk's looked a lot better since week one, but I think the Saints as a dog right now, until I see otherwise, I think that's the way I'm going to ride. So Saints plus 2.5. It was plus 2 when I looked at it initially, but I'll take the extra half point.
All right, Patty, who are you looking at for that fourth game?
Yeah, you don't have to twist my rubber arm to fade the Falcons, so I agree with that one there. For my last two bets, my third and fourth.
Oh yeah, okay,
this is where I went. This is where I went with my side, actually. So Steelers Colts under 40. I have no idea why this number is so high, and I mean 40 is not a ton of points in the NFL, but when you're dealing with these two defenses, that should be a 37.5,
38.5. I don't know why it's at 40.
It's crazy. Maybe I'm eating the cheese here, but the Steelers, they've averaged only 25.6 points per game. Like not the Steelers games. There have only been 25.6 points scored per game. They've given up the least amount of points per game this year at 9.6, I think it is. Something crazy. And even though they're elite defensively, their offense is absolutely abysmal. They cannot score the football, and they're fine with that. They are fine with living in the mud, mucking it up. And I think the Colts, when you look at them as well, their defense does a really good job not giving up big plays, big chunk yardage. They'll be able to figure it out. And we talked about this I think it was a couple of days ago, Dusty, not really putting a ton of faith in Anthony Richardson going up against this defense. So I think there's going to be a lot of field goals, a lot of punting. This one's in Indy at Lucas Oil. It's giving big time Big Ten vibes. I also like the over 3.5 field goals in this one at minus 105. So I'll take the under 40, and then the other total that I like as well, Commanders, Cardinals over 50. There's an old saying, and you guys have heard this before, defense travels. That is not the case with the Commanders, though. They've given up 28 points or more in 9 of their last 12 games dating back to last year. As ugly as it's been defensively, and how much fun it's been with Daniels, the Commanders defensively, it has been gross to watch. Their secondary is getting torched with big plays, 31st in yards per passing attempt. So it's been a struggle for that secondary. I imagine it continues with a Cardinals team that I think a lot of people are surprised with how electric they've been offensively. 27.3 points per game. That's 4th in the entire NFL. But let's get back to Washington. We're going to talk about points per game. 26.3. That's good enough for 5th. And you talked about the revenge game earlier. Dusty, this one's a revenge game as well. Cliff Kingsbury revenge game.
It's true.
So I know he's going to want to put up points and prove that they made a wrong decision. So over 50, I think this one could be an all-out shootout down in Arizona.
This is interesting because it's a perfect tie-in because Huss's 4th bet and my 4th bet are head-to-head on this game.
Okay.
Huss is on the Commanders plus 3.5 at minus 116. I am going to be on the Cardinals minus the 3.5 at home here. One of the big reasons was you laid it out. The Commanders defense. I mean, if the Cardinals, and the Commanders offense is great, but if the Cardinals can get a couple of stops, it should be enough for them to cover this 3.5. And if you look at what's happening with the Cardinals so far, and this is the Commanders they're playing, their losses have been to the Bills and the Lions. And there's no shame in losing relatively close football games. They were ahead against Buffalo, and then that weird second half against Detroit where really nothing happened. And then when they played somebody not named Detroit and Buffalo, they absolutely smashed the Rams 41-10. So I think Kyler Murray's going to have a heyday against the secondary of the Commanders, who's 31st in coverage, according to PFF so far this year. So I'm going to get on the Cardinals here. I like watching the Commanders. I think they're going to take a step in the right direction this year. I'm a big fan of Jaden Daniels. From a fantasy perspective, I got a lot of invested in him. I like him, but I think the Cardinals are better than you look at going, 1-2. Well, they lost to two really good teams, destroyed a team. Their offense has been pretty good. And if their defense can what was it? What did I see? I think the Commanders, was it the Commanders? The Commanders through their first 3 games have forced 2 punts. That's it. Like, the Commanders can't get off the field here. So I wish Huss was on, because I'd love to hear the case for the Commanders to cover, because I like the Cardinals in this. I mean, when I finally throw in some bets, I'll probably move it. If I'm going to parlay it, I'll probably move it inside to 2.5 maybe, but -3.5 at -101. Where do you guys come out on the side on this one, Pat or Jake? Any thoughts on the Commanders, or like with Huss and I going head to head here?
It's a tough one for me. I think I kind of lean more towards you. I think it's going to be a close game. So if you can get a 3.5 to cover that possible backdoor field goal, for me, again, don't overreact. I think we're overreacting to the Commanders. That was a big win, but like the Bengals defense is absolutely garbage. I tend to agree with you. I think the Commanders defensively aren't going to be able to figure out that Cardinals offense. So if I had to lean aside, I'd probably go with the Cardinals, but I don't have a strong enough read with that being said.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it, I think just the way that Kyler Murray offense has been great. I don't know why, but I do worry a little bit about the Cliff Kingsbury revenge factor. I don't think I'm going to play a side in this one, but after listening to kind of both you guys lay it out, I might go to the Cardinals team total here. 26.5, over 26.5 at -122 might be a play that I'm riding on this weekend.
And they've been averaging that already, right, Pat? What'd you say the number was? 26, right around 26 or 27?
Yeah, 26 points, yeah. 26 point something. Let me
against a team that's been giving up huge plays and a good amount of points. So
27.3.
The one team who didn't score against the Commanders a ton was the Giants, and I think they still scored 3 touchdowns. They just didn't have a kicker that week. So,
yeah, that was the game that the Commanders had 7 field goals. That was that game, right? Like, it's yeah. And before Monday night, I was reading. I think I was reading the Action Network, and before Monday night, this was set at 5.5. So the Monday night Jaden Daniels performance moved this line 2 points, and I don't think I would have been on him at 5.5, but I don't mind him at 3.5. I hate the extra hook. That's why I'll probably move it when I do it, but I'll take the Cardinals minus 3.5. All right, so so let's just quickly recap. Huss is on Minnesota +3, Tampa +1.5, Jets -7.5, Washington +3.5. I am on the Jets -7.5, the Bengals -4.5, the Cardinals -3.5, Jacksonville +6. Patty, who do you got for your 4 best bets?
Tampa 1.5 or money line maybe for the parlay. Minnesota +2.5. Commanders Cards over 50. Steelers Colts under 40.
Jake?
I had the Jags, the Bengals, the Bucks, and the Saints.
All right. What about some games that we haven't discussed? I mean, we've hit on a lot of games here. Let's just dive in and see things that we stayed away from. Let's see what are we on here. I sent you the fanny picks for the week. Not to spoil it, but the Rams-Bears game came up again, which I didn't necessarily want to get into. I think we've covered a lot of these other games. San Francisco, New England, we haven't hit on that, guys. The number's 10.5. And did you think at all about either side of that one?
No, I mean, it's my guys. After watching last week against the Jets, like, really not a performance that you're excited about the Patriots kind of the rest of the way here. I'm glad they're big underdogs. I mean, it probably means they're more likely to lose. San Fran's in a situation they're just coming off a comeback loss to the Rams, a divisional opponent. It's a great spot to get right. The only thing I worry about with San Fran is like who's going to be healthy and who's not, right? Like who's playing football. We know McCaffrey's out much longer than we expected from the start of the season, which, I mean, it's a totally different conversation in terms of fantasy ownership and all that kind of stuff, and how little information we had going into the season. But, Kittle was hurt last week. He didn't play. Debo was hurt last week. He didn't play. Jawan Jennings had a huge game. Obviously, it came in a loss. Brandon Ayuk, maybe one of those guys we circle. Like, he had a few drops last week. I think Ayuk could be one of those receivers we look at and go, okay, this was the Brandon Ayuk game. And it's a great team to do it against. JSN and Metcalf both ate against this Patriots secondary. They were awful at tackling against the Jets. I don't trust the Patriots by any means. I don't know if I want to take a big number like 10.5. It's probably a prop game for me. If I'm looking at it, like I said, maybe it's an Ayuk game where, it's time for him to get on the board, get a touchdown, 7 or 8 receptions, and, everyone kind of eats on San Fran and try to get some confidence up going into the next week.
2 other games that we didn't hit on, and we totally should. One we would definitely got to if Huss was here. Kansas City Chiefs, -7 on the road against the Chargers. Chargers are awfully banged up here, Pat. Did you consider getting on the Kansas City side here and maybe Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and maybe they find a way to have a game here finally?
This does feel like a let's flex our muscles and prove that the Chiefs are the Chiefs again. I think that from what we've seen with this Chiefs group, like, again, it's they're not looking like world beaters. I know they're undefeated, and we've seen in last couple of years, especially last year, like, don't worry about them. They're going to be fine. This seems like a spot, though, against a divisional opponent, going into a building that's really not going to be all that ruckus. I bet you there's probably going to be a ton of Chiefs fans down at this game. The 7 scares me. If it was 6.5, I don't know. I could see them really blowing this team out. The Chargers waving the white flag, allowing everyone to get hurt. They have a bye.
They have a bye the week after, right? Too, so there'd be really no reason to push even harder here.
No, let's go with the double bye. They've got a couple of wins in their pocket that a lot of people probably didn't think they were going to get. And so, yeah, you know what? -7, I can see it. You probably like it at 6.5, so you don't get that push. But, that would be one that I certainly would consider. And maybe closer to game time, I'll think about it.
Jake, any thoughts on the Chiefs?
Yeah, I've been begging the Chiefs to chief for a while here, and they just haven't been doing it. Like, everything's been so tight. Another one of those divisional matchups, but I can't, in the right mind, put any money on the Chargers right now. Herbert's hurt. He's banged up. Joe Alt's banged up, who was, he's a huge piece of that offensive line that they picked up in the draft this year. Bosa, I think, was banged up last week as well. It's just one of those spots where, the Chiefs should take care of them. Honestly, could win by double digits, no problem. But the concern is, are the Chiefs ever going to blow anybody out? Like, it doesn't feel like they blow a lot of people out.
No,
they don't.
2 regular seasons,
they find a way.
It's just they kind of just win football games, and that's great. Winning football games matters, and they won Super Bowls, so you're not going to argue with that recipe. But at the same time, I just have a hard time taking a big number with the Chiefs right now. So probably another one that I don't end up taking a side, and I just maybe dig around for a prop or something.
A little bit of sad one that we didn't get on it. But I got to get your thoughts on Bills Ravens, Pat. Did you? I know you're usually not going to hop on a side in a Bills game, but your thoughts on it being 2.5. I didn't know. This is a stay away game for me. I'm not too sure what to expect here.
Big time stay away game. Even if this wasn't the Buffalo Bills put a different jersey and helmet on them, I'm probably still staying away from the side. I could see this being an over game though, with how well the Buffalo Bills offense has been playing, with how much the Bills, I know their defense has looked pretty stout since basically after that first quarter against the Cardinals in their home opener. But they're susceptible against the run. And who runs the ball better than the Ravens? The Ravens, I think EPA, yards per play, they're number 1. The Bills are the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL. I think we see a lot of points. I'm not entirely I think if this game's in Buffalo, the line switched to Bills -2.5. I think it's going to be a close game. So probably a prop fest for me. And if I had to pick, I'm not going to pick a side. So I'd probably lean over.
Oh, all right, boys, let's get into, first of all, partner parlay and then the house callers touchdown parlay. So what games are we on? You guys all love the Bucs for the partner parlay.
Yeah.
All 3
should we go Bucs money? Should we play it safe? Go money line?
Bucs money. What is that? It's got to be a decent number. It's a small spread, right? So I think that makes sense. Tampa Bay money line.
-1.
Is there a world where we're worried about the 1 point? I know it's so small, but are we going to be kicking ourselves because they lose on a last second Jake Elliott.
Well, now you brought it up. We have to. We have to. We're getting a point.
I think we just take the point. It's a point and a half, right? So, minus 111. I don't think it's going to kill us. I hope the Bucs win. I'll probably play a money line as well. Like maybe
I'm going to
a little parlay, which I think Huss does have a little parlay coming up in the combo cards.
Yeah, we do have a parlay that we can lay out. Okay, so let's go. So we're just going to get on Tampa with the points.
Yeah, plus 1.5. We'll take the 1.5.
Plus 1.5 Tampa. All right, what else was there anything else that we were both,
the Bang Gang. I think the Bang Gang, right?
Are you sure? Are you sure, Pat? I mean, this is not the Jags. It's not like we're putting the Jags on there.
I like the Bangs.
You liked it. Okay. All right, let's do it.
Yep.
All right. Let's put Cincy on this thing. So Cincy
at 4.5, maybe Dusty, maybe you and Huss seem to like the Jets. I don't think we really had any.
You guys weren't opposed to the Jets, are you?
Let's get it down
to 6.5. Maybe?
Move the Jets to 6.5.
Yep.
And then put Tampa at 1.5. And then do we just leave Cincy where it is? Do we move that at all? It's at 4.5. It's kind of a weird number. I mean, but we all liked it where it was.
It is.
Okay.
I'm fine where it is.
All right. So Cincy minus 4.5. The Jets minus 7 or 6.5. And then Tampa plus 1.5. That'll be our lock shot partner parlay. Haas has thrown this over. What did you say, Jake? You said this one will end up in the combo cards?
Yeah, I believe Patty's already put it together. So
okay,
it's perfect. Getting it pushed through.
This is Haas's money line parlay for the week. Real nice number before any sort of combo card boost. But he's on Minnesota money line, Tampa Bay money line, Colts money line, and he was called out immediately for fading the Steelers by Pat because has Huss not been pro Steeler most of the year?
He has. He's been Mr. Steeler.
Interesting.
I'm surprised.
That line is, if we're talking about fishing meter, I know you guys like when I pull out the fishing meter. That one, like the Steelers have been, like one of the best defenses in the league to start the season, and that's how they win football games. Patty mentioned it earlier, defense travels. I think the Steelers defense especially travels. And the Colts really haven't looked that good. I know I was like high on the Colts early in the season. I could easily have been wrong about the Colts, but it is one of those weird lines where it's like the Steelers only 1.5 point favorites in Indy, with a defense like they have. The offense has been just fine. Indy's been giving up some big yards in the air. So, I mean, maybe that's one of the things where it's like, Indy stops the run and Fields has a tough time throwing the ball, but I was surprised to see that number at 1.5.
This too, also, Jake, Pittsburgh's like 5.5 hours away from Indy. I think the Steelers are going to have a big fan base. You mentioned the defense traveling. I think the terrible towels are traveling as well. I know he's got the pulse on the Steelers better than most, but I was shocked to see him fading them there.
All right, House Callers parlay. Hustle started off, and we hit this last week. 4 different touchdown scores. Brian Robinson Jr. at minus 110. So he's on. I like that pick too. So Brian Robinson Jr. at minus 110. Patty, who are you throwing on the list?
I mentioned I really like the Vikings here, so I'm going to go with Justin Jefferson. He's been an absolute beast. Him and Sammy Darts have been connecting quite a bit. So I think it's at like minus 110. So I'm going to go with JJ.
Okay, I'm putting it just below Brian Robinson Jr. on the power rankings. It's right there. Jake, go ahead.
Here we go. Listen,
I'm right to the bottom. I'm blind. I'm doing one of those blind rankings. Yeah. I'm putting you right at the bottom.
I might be feeling a little cocky on this one, but we're on the Bengies. I'm taking T. Higgins. I think they didn't get I think he didn't get as involved as they wanted him last week, and who knows how much that injury is lingering. He gets another week of rest, another week in the practice facility with Burrow and stuff. He had 2 targets in the red zone last week. I think this is the week he gets in. Carolina giving up the second most passing touchdowns per game right now at 2.3. I know we're only 3 weeks in, but that's a testament to that Carolina defense not being too good. I think Higgins is that type of guy, big target in the end zone. Quentin Johnson had a couple touchdowns against these guys. I think that's what we're looking at. T. Higgins plus 175, juicy.
Okay, cool. So a couple of things. I did put it at the bottom of the power rankings. It is there. But as I was putting together my own touchdown score, I did contemplate T. Higgins being the guy. So it's funny that you brought up T. Higgins. I'm going Marvin
Dusty,
Harrison.
we're
I'm
on a
going
wavelength here.
Yeah, I'm going Marvin Harrison Jr. this week. Commander secondary sucks. I think Trey McBride's a little bit banged up. It could be a huge game for this guy, so I like it. I'm going to put Marvin Harrison Jr. just below Justin Jefferson and Brian Robinson. So Brian Robinson, Justin Jefferson, Marvin Harrison, T. Higgins at the bottom of the power rankings this week. But man, if we could go back to back house callers parlay, that would be huge.
So it's funny you mentioned that because when I looked at Commanders, I looked at that game. I'm like, because I'm on the over. I'm like, there's probably going to be a few touchdown scorers here. But then Haas went Robinson Jr. I wanted to stay away, but like looking at that, Marvin Harrison was one of the ones that I wanted to get there. All individually bet it. The other thing I didn't want to put in the parlay because the number is so big, but I'm shocked. Scary Terry is plus 200. That is an unbelievable number for a guy that obviously is showing that him and Daniels are starting to get a lot of chemistry. That might be it's not going to be on the parlay, but I think that's going to be no doubt my best touchdown scorer bet of the week. I really like it at plus 200. That does make sense. It's got to be shorter than that.
That is kind of weird. He's been great lately. Quickly, Elks play tonight. I'll text this to you guys right now. I'm going to send it over, but a little parlay tonight that we can hop on while we're doing the watch party tonight. Curly Gittins Jr. He's been MBT's go-to target so far. They're going to need him tonight. It's at 5.5. If you can move it down to 4.5 targets or receptions, that would be great. Justin Rankin over 59.5 yards rushing for Edmonton, and a Brady Oliveira TD for Winnipeg. So Brady TD, Rankin over 59.5. Gittins moved from 5.5 to 4.5. And fire me a text when that bad boy's up, and we'll get it out for the watch party tonight as well. I like doing Friday NFL shows, boys. I'm not gonna lie, it's real nice to be back. It's real nice to be back. I'll be here next week too, so that'll be. We might have to set up a 4-man window next week. We haven't done 4-man window yet, but I like that. Trev, make a 4-man window for next week. Yeah, we'll do that. That'll be a lot of fun.
4-man weave.
Yeah, that'll be good. All right, boys, enjoy the weekend.
Take care. Enjoy the football, boys.